We've all found ourselves elbow deep in a problem that we assumed would be a no-brainer to get out of. Relationships, parenting, smiling even though we're dead inside, believing that if we just keep pushing forward, the knots in our day-to-day life will work themselves out. Instead, what we find is that the longer we struggle with a problem, the more and more problems start to accumulate. In life, this struggle is called existence, and in storytelling, this struggle is called good writing, but that doesn't make it an easy task. That's why today we're going to be taking a look at Vinland Saga, how the storytellers tell one coherent narrative by weaving several character arcs together, how these arcs depend on one another to create greater narrative depth, and the step-by-step approach you can take to making your writing, a little less dead inside. Starting with step number 1. Determine your main character's arc and journey. Let's be honest, we're all here for manga and storytelling, so I'm going to make the bold assumption that no one here is coordinated enough to catch a ball, let alone juggle. Character weaving is like juggling, but instead of flaming chainsaws and wearing a clown costume, we're juggling emotions and perspectives while wearing a shirt stained by tears, coffee, and broken dreams. So, rather than starting with 5 chainsaws, we're going to start to learn how to juggle story threads by throwing and catching one chainsaw by the handle. Better yet, let's just start with a single ball and get the timing down. In Vinland Saga, this ball is called Thorfinn, a pudgy-faced little kid with dreams of becoming an adventurer and sailing west to a land where people don't suck. Good luck, little buddy. Anyway, we chuck this little ball up into the air along what we'll call his character arc, the journey Thorfinn is going to go on as he goes from one hand to the next. Before we go any further and start adding other balls to this story, let's consider what we want Thorfinn to learn and how we want him to go about learning it during this arc. At story start, Thorfinn is like any other 6-year-old with access to his dad's weapons, excited but oblivious to the dangers. The established character of Thors is used to deliver our story's theme, that no one has enemies, and this sets up the story conflict moving forward as we have a young, angry, and naive boy failing to learn what his father taught him. And this is it. This is all we need to start moving forward with the story as a writer. We might not know why Thorfinn is mad, why he takes so long to learn this lesson, or what finally causes him to learn the lesson, but we know what his beliefs are at 6 years old, and we also know what we want him to learn by story's end. Think of it like going to a bar to meet women. The lighting is awful, your judgment isn't the best. You don't know if the women here will spike your drink and steal your kidney, or if they're more the strong, independent type. But you have your main objective, no matter what kind of woman you meet. If you proceed forward and find out this isn't the right bar for you, you can always go right down the street to Applebee's and start over again. Which brings us to step number 2, finding the right wingmen to help our hero along their journey. Thinking back to one of my favorite horror films, The Wizard of Oz, we can see this step at play very clearly. We establish Dorothy's character and her want to return to her trailer park in Kansas instead of an opium oasis with a color-changing horse. Along the way, she meets 3 guys looking for organs who help her find a man with a hot air balloon that they can borrow for the low, low price of taking a life. The story and characters make sense because every character's path through the story has the same trajectory and end objective. In Vinland Saga, we have a similar setup where Thorfinn plays the role of Dorothy, and characters like Thorkel, Askeladd, and Knut splinter off his story threads like bad decisions after a few drinks. These stories all stem from Thorfinn's quest for revenge, even though, in terms of scope, Thorfinn's story is of least consequence. However, while we all came to this show for Vikings and bloodshed, the soul of the story still comes down to the change we see in Thorfinn. So now the question is, how do these characters support our hero on his journey? How do they add tension and question if Thorfinn is in fact on the right path? These are both stylistic questions as much as they are thematic questions, so let me explain. In storytelling, there is a balancing act where you need to give your hero enough conflict to force them to grow, while also giving them enough support so that they don't die. Think of it like that time your mom left you at the McDonald's playhouse when you wouldn't come down the slide. Sure, it was scary at the time, but because of that hardship, you learned to face your fears, how to hitchhike, and how the foster home system works. Our side characters function just like your mom, in that they provide character-building opportunities for your hero while also struggling with their own problems. How you implement these supports is your call. They can be an insightful antagonist, a calling to one's heritage, or a mirror that illustrates the opposite transformation your hero takes. But Each of these mothers is an opportunity for you as the writer to expand the story, and therefore elaborate your thoughts and themes. Which brings us to step number 3. Side characters and their side stories shouldn't just reiterate your hero's journey. They should challenge the hero's transformation with a tangential or opposing view. No matter the character, they have a story. It may not be a story you delve into, but they still have a background, one that gave them a perspective which feeds into the way they act and behave during the events of your story. Since Thorfinn is our main lens, we understand his arc of a boy attempting to learn the lesson his father never had the chance to teach him, that he has no enemies, and that people popping with daddy's daggers isn't nice. The events of Thorfinn's life and PTSD prove this point. However, it's not enough for you as the storyteller to make your point and straw man the counterarguments. Yes, violence is bad, but it sometimes is a necessary evil. There is a difference between those who fight to protect and those who fight for the enjoyment of pistachioing people in half. When good people do nothing, bad men rise to power. But it's not enough just to state these facts in your story. Well, I mean, you can, but we're not here to argue with logic and monologues. We're here to argue with emotional make-believe. In the case of Vinland Saga, the storytellers make the argument for all perspectives, be it a man fighting to protect his mother's home by the cruelest means necessary, even if it means fighting alongside his enemy, a powerful warrior who seeks nothing but an endless war, or a feeble prince whose weakness as a leader threatens more death than were he to become a human blender like Thorfinn. In all three character examples, we see glimpses of Thorfinn's dark half: revenge, senseless violence, the burden of responsibility at a young age, as well as pieces of his possible redemption, fighting for others, living life for the enjoyment of being alive, and having a strong vision for the future. It's a lot like Mexican food, in that a lot of the same ingredients get used from recipe to recipe, but it's the slight alterations in amounts and preparations which make the difference between a delicious meal and an explosive night in the bathroom where the ambulance gets called. But then how do we prepare this ulcerative colitis supreme in a way that the audience can comprehend the viewpoint and story tangent without detracting from our main plot? Additionally, how do we prevent being too shallow with side character development so that these additional stories don't fall flat or go stale? Let's wrap up this chalupa with point number 4. Diversify how you present side character backstory. So, allow me to double down on the advice in this episode and draw us a little parallel between storytelling and dating. When dating, we want both dependability and spontaneity from our partner, which is like saying that you always surprise your girlfriend by lighting her house on fire at 9 p.m. on Wednesdays. Sounds crazy, I know, but this is dating in 2024. Not really, though. Don't commit arson. In storytelling, when giving your side characters a narrative presence, we want to be consistent, meaning that each side character with significance to your story gets some development and backstory. However, the spontaneity comes in the form of how we deliver this backstory and character arc. These character arcs coincide with our initial juggle ball of Thorfinn's character, but some have shorter arcs, more intricate paths, or get juggled in the opposite direction. Think of this like swimming in the dating pool. Some people are new to the game. Some people have been in it for a long time. Some people are lightheartedly eating ice cream on a floaty, while others are drowning in the deep end and dragging other people down with them. Everyone is at a different stage of their romantic endeavors when we dive in, and so we learn about their lives and adventure in different ways. And now you might be thinking to yourself, but Andrews, you don't know anything about women or dating. You got dumped by the same girl 3 times. And that's because abuse is my preferred love language. But let's pretend I know more about writing than women. When we jump into the pool of Vinland Saga's story world, we have characters like Thors and Askeladd nearing the end of their journeys. Characters like Thorkel, who seems to be a flat character in a never-changing midst of his search for war, and characters like Canute, who are only just beginning. For characters like Canute, we can follow along his story as it runs alongside Thorfinn's, stopping only briefly to learn how his past 16 years of life have formed him into the coward we first meet. From there on out, we get his story and development firsthand. For characters with longer histories which have already occurred, or those with more complicated philosophies such as Askeladd, We need to present these philosophies in anecdotes, flashbacks, and consistent character actions to better define them. These are Askeladd's stories of Rome, the revenge taken against his father, and the cold yet paternal approach he takes towards Thorfinn. By approaching side characters in this manner, we consistently provide our audience with detailed and fulfilling backstory, but we alter the way in which we convey these details, providing rich and engaging side stories which are woven into a coherent tapestry rather than a knotted up jumbled mess of netting pulling us under the waters of the dating pool. By providing diverse side stories which stem from a sturdy central character arc, we not only are improving the quality of our story, the strength of our story's arguments, and the engagement our audience will have with the entire cast, we are also ensuring that, no matter what path our story takes, be it to the wonderful land of Oz or Applebee's, all of our characters are going there together in one clearly told narrative. Thank you guys so much for watching. Before you go back to work, make sure to leave a suggestion in the comments section for shows or topics you'd like to see in future videos so I can make content better tailored to help you guys with your storytelling. And, until next time, go write the best story possible. The ending.